Welcome back, folks, to another episode of Generation Red, the kettle corn of Husker Fan Podcast, where we try to be sweet, but at times we get salty. I am your host, Ken.
And I am your other host, Scott.
And tonight it's going to be a lot of fun. We've got a couple of buddies on the show that have never been on our show before. So tonight, gentlemen, you are popping your Gen Red.
Whatever YouTube will let us call it.
Yeah. I didn't want to be rude, so I apologize.
No, you can't offend me, I promise.
Yeah, I got you. Yeah, well, H-Town Husker. That says it all. It says it all. Hey, this is going to be fun, but before we kind of get to talking to you guys here real quick, I've got a couple of things I just want to go over with the folks watching. Number one, if you're live or watching us on demand afterward, please give us a like. Please give us a subscribe. Participate in the chat if you're live, or leave us a comment if you're watching on demand after this live stream is over. Also, to those who listen to our podcast on your favorite app, make sure you leave us a rating and a review, especially on Apple Podcasts and Google Podcasts. It helps people find us. Let's see here. We actually have an ad read, believe it or not. Help support our podcast and get ready for football season by ordering the Hail Varsity Yearbook. Use our referral code, which is GENRED, GENRED, and 10% of the purchase price goes directly to support our show. It features exclusive interviews and access, and you can get the inside look at the 2024 Nebraska football season. Order yours today at herdatsports.com until August 11th. So don't miss out on this exciting opportunity to get your hands on the yearbook and support our podcast. Go to herdatsports.com to order your copy today. And one more item before we get into the show. Our show has been nominated for a Golden Ear Podcast Award. It's a brand new award that I think they just started doing this year, and a GEPA is given specifically to Nebraska podcasts that are produced in the state, and they cover a wide variety of genres. Panel of unbiased judges from the broadcast industry across the country will review all the submissions and choose 7 shows in each category as finalists for the fans to vote on. Fan voting begins on August 1st and ends on September 15th, and the winners will be announced on International Podcast Day, which is September 30th, 2024. So go to the GEPAs, THEGEPAS.com for more information. And that's it. That's all of the housekeeping we have to do to start the show. Hi, guys. This has been a day. I'm sitting here on my laptop, which I don't normally have to do here in the studio because the one USB port on my PC that my USB interface can reach from the table here broke. So here I am using my headset plugged directly into the, thank God this headset has the ability to do this and this all in one jack on the computer. So it makes it really, really easy. It's just my workflow is so completely different. And I apologize to anybody watching this that if it looks a little wonky at times, that's the reason. Has nothing to do with my inability to produce a show, but
right.
But this is fun, you guys. I am so glad you guys agreed to come on. We've got 2 guests with us, folks. We've got Justin Adams. He's the host of the Nebraska Football Channel at the Voice of College Football. Scott and I both have been guests on his show a couple times. And then we have Coach Ben Audi from the BA Coaches Show here on YouTube, as well as on your favorite podcast app. He's also a contributor to the Red Zone Reflections blog at the nbnrpodcast.com. Our buddies over there at No Block, No Rock. That's how I heard about you, Coach, was I saw the post on Twitter, and next thing I knew, we were interacting, and next thing I knew, I'm sitting on the screen, and we're talking Husker football, and it's been a lot of fun. And next week, you're going to be here.
Yes, I will be in your studio next week.
Yeah, hopefully I'll be able to figure out how to actually use the PCs. So we don't have to have all this junk on the table. But it's really fun having you guys on. Thanks so much for doing this. It really means a lot to me and to Scott. And it just makes it's a more fun conversation when it's not just he and I just yammering on for an hour, you know.
I appreciate you having us on, though. I appreciate
Yes, I really do appreciate you having me on. Before we really get going, I do have to just kind of give a shout out here. I would like to give a shout out to my wife, Hannah. It's our 6th wedding anniversary today.
Oh,
so
congrats.
Congratulations. I would like to give her a mega thank you for letting me spend my evening sitting here talking Husker football with you guys. I feel like this
That's a
is
big
kind
time.
of a little bit of a gift today.
Yep.
But no, she's great. So I do want to give a little bit of a shout out to her.
Congrats, man.
How much did getting the evening free cost you, my friend?
It cost him everything.
That's what I'm guessing. Yeah.
Oh yeah, we had just got home. We went out to Texas Roadhouse, and then literally got home. She took the kids. She was going to get them some ice cream and stuff, so I could sit here and talk with you guys. So I think it's a fair trade.
Yeah,
That's
you
great.
did all right. That's a good trade. But I'm sure there's a lot of equity you're going to be paying into over the next year because of being here with us. So, good luck with that. Oh, but anyway, yeah, happy anniversary to you two. That's awesome. My
Thank
wife
you.
and I here this next month will celebrate 35 years. So, yeah, it's pretty cool.
I'm going on a few months, 4 months. So
Hell yeah.
I'm fresh. I was anti-marriage. I met my wife and then she changed my mind. So we got married in March. So
that's usually what happens.
I'm 33, so I just got married.
I quit looking for a girl or looking for anything at all until about 2 months before I met mine, and then that was that. So
yeah, no kids though. I'm too mentally unstable for kids right now. I just stick with dogs.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure kids made me mentally unstable myself. So
no argument there. No argument there.
So tonight, guys, it's going to be a lot of fun. We're going to look back at Big Ten Media Days. Justin, I know you did a video on that with Wilson a few days ago. You guys kind of ran down Big Ten Media Days. I caught the first 5 minutes, and then I got caught up in doing other stuff, so I couldn't really watch the whole thing. I'll be curious to hear your thoughts on some of these video clips I'm going to show in a little bit.
Yes, sir.
But before we get to Big Ten Media Days, we're going to actually talk about some recruiting visits that were huge over the weekend, and maybe some of the implications of some of that may be coming down the pipe. We're also going to, of course, talk about Big Ten Media Days and the fact that the Angry Turtle went all scorched earth on Matt Rhule on the ESECPM channel right after.
I have some thoughts when we get there.
I'm sure you do.
I have some thoughts.
Yeah, just hold on to them. Let them boil. Let them burn.
And then, oh yeah, we're good.
We'll let them fly here in about 45 minutes. So that's kind of the rundown tonight. Let's talk about the recruiting visits. Justin, take it away. This is kind of your specialty, and I'd just be curious to hear your thoughts on all of that.
Yeah, so I mean the two biggest ones, of course, because Michael Terry will be visiting Monday, Tuesday. So the two biggest, most important ones were Isaiah Mozee and David Sanders Jr. See David Sanders Jr. Of course, they're getting off the bus. A pretty big turnout for a Friday night at 5:30. People getting off work and stuff like that. Tennessee tried to outdo it the next day and had about a small classroom of people show up. So they didn't really, it wasn't the same pizzazz and flair. And part of what David Sanders has talked about and liking about Nebraska is just how quickly Nebraska has come on in his recruiting process and been able to, make a mark on him and establish themselves as a key player in this and build that family relationship that he talks about. NIL isn't the first thing that he looks for. With guys like a David Sanders and Michael Terry, some of these guys that are of these top talents, NIL matters, but at the end of the day, these guys have a long career ahead of them of money, and so they're also trying to find the best fit for them. David Sanders, Tennessee was coming into this. Ohio State was kind of a probably, I would say, the favorite. Tennessee being second, Nebraska being third. Nebraska was able to make up some ground. Just from what I'm hearing, Nebraska did make up some ground. But the hardest part about determining this was Nebraska was in a very good spot. I'm just going to say that when he came out to campus and by the time he left, that Nebraska was in a really, really good spot with him. However, Tennessee getting the second visit, you never know what's going to happen off of that. So if you asked me on Friday, I would have said Nebraska's in a really good spot. But again, we don't know the results or what was talked about behind closed doors with Tennessee. There's a lot of things indicating that, I know a lot of people have almost taken Ohio State out of the equation altogether. Ohio State is still in daily contact with him and very, very much a player in this. So do not be surprised if Ohio State, gets the nod there. But I'm feeling overall pretty good about it. I would say I'm right now, I'm leaning in like the 35-40% range that we could land them. Coming into the weekend, I would have said that's probably about 15-20. So we've made a lot of ground. And again, a lot of the stuff I'm hearing, I don't want to disclose it, but very, very good indications. And Isaiah Mozee. So Isaiah Mozee is a guy that I talked to Oregon fans about before, when Jamar Mozee initially came over. And again, they were very lukewarm about his commitment as it was. And so I could have, Isaiah Mozee is, I'm not going to say it's a done deal. I'm going to let, but Isaiah Mozee is about as in as you can get. Essentially what this visit was. Now, the way this works is we came out of a quiet period. We're going into another one. So they had a little bit of a window here to get some of these guys in and discuss some of these, final details, like Michael Terry. Michael Terry isn't necessarily looking to do too much. Michael Terry wants to finalize details and see where he's at with these schools, Texas, Nebraska, and Oregon. So that's what a lot of these visits were. So Isaiah Mozee coming out, of course, Jamar is now going to be able to coach the players and he's going to be working with the offensive specialists. So he's going to be working hands-on with Isaiah. Unless something big changes, Isaiah Mozee is pretty much in. And we feel pretty good about that. But Isaiah Mozee was one of those guys that even before his visit, I felt like we were in a great spot to land him just because of his commitment level with Oregon. But yeah, just an absolute stud. And I tell people that if we come out of the weekend with Isaiah Mozee, it's still a win, right? I would still order it. Isaiah Mozee, David Sanders, Michael Terry, in terms of the order of what I think how likely we are to land them. But the one that I can almost say for certain is Isaiah Mozee. So a lot of good stuff coming out of it. The biggest thing, though, is that you saw the impact that this had on Sanders and what Sanders, Nebraska got in the recruiting process late on him. He's been to some of these schools, 3-4 times, and he was at Nebraska once in May. Nebraska didn't offer him until Dylan Raiola came over. They were recruited together at Georgia. They were friends from that. As soon as Raiola came over to Nebraska, that's when Nebraska offered him. So these schools have been on him for 2, 3, 4 years. Nebraska got in at the buzzer, and they are here essentially in the final 3 competing for him. So we have a lot to be optimistic about no matter what, but we should get more intel out of the Tennessee visit here pretty soon, and I'll keep everybody up to date on the latest there. So that's the big storylines out of the weekend, though.
Well, I appreciate that. Appreciate the rundown on that. You said also that Phil Steele was on with Mark, right, from the Voice of College Football, and he had some interesting stuff to say about what he thinks for Nebraska and the prospects for them. Was he talking a little bit of recruiting as well, or was it just kind of what he sees this team shaping up to be?
So yeah, Mark was able to cover down for the interview with Phil Steele, and he feels good about where Nebraska's at. Just talking about going into next season in terms of he trusts Dylan Raiola. He thinks Dylan Raiola can make the necessary throws he needs to be successful at the next level. But also he dumped a stat where 75% of teams with double-digit turnovers improve drastically year over year. So Nebraska not only had double-digit turnovers, they had 30 some odd turnovers from just the QB room alone. So we're not talking just if we're talking a baseline where teams with double-digit turnovers 75% of the time improve significantly, then a team with 3 times the amount of double-digit turnovers from just one, room. Think about the level, because the way it works in these things is you see that statistic, but think about just how far past just double digits Nebraska was, and you also factor that in, because that's something I don't think people pay attention to is, there's a difference between 10 and 35. And so even more of a percentage, in my opinion, that gives Nebraska above the odds of the 75% to make a year-over-year jump, on top of many other things that I've talked about. But he kind of echoed the sentiment on a lot of that. But it's over on the channel if y'all want to go check that out. But that was very interesting, that number that he brought up there. And again, he had Nebraska's defensive line in his top. They were the second in his magazine on teams he expects to improve the most this season. So he's very, very bullish on Nebraska, and he gives a lot of insight as to why that's the case. So
Didn't Phil Steele, did he mention by chance? Because I want to say it was post 2021 or maybe it was post 2020. Because he gave kind of the same prediction when we were really, really bad in the turnover margin.
22, I know he had us in the top somewhat of most improved teams, but yeah, so go on.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So did he mention like, hey, I know I've made this prediction in the past that Nebraska was going to have a flip. Like statistically, it's inevitable. Like Nebraska should flip in a better direction.
Yeah.
It's such an anomaly that we've had such a long stretch of turnover margin errors. Did he mention anything about that? Like, okay, like for real, guys, like this is absurdly improbable that Nebraska has another year of turnover blunders.
Yeah. So one of the big things that he does over time is he's always constantly, because I get his magazine every year, he's constantly redoing these formulas and trying to find ways to make it more statistically accurate. You know, he crunches the numbers after the year and sees just based on, you know, because he has about 9 different rankings that he puts cumulatively together to kind of get to his overall rankings. And so he finds the best way to weight those to kind of, you know, give him the best statistics in terms of his predictions goes. So it's constantly evolving. So he goes a little bit into his process and why he believes it. But yes, he's much more bullish on Nebraska this year than most. And he does dive into a little bit of why it's that case basically, but he's talking about kind of the way he judges these teams going into the season and the reasons why he, you know, he's like cautioning people like, I'm not just saying this isn't just another year of the same old same, you know, I have a legitimate reason why this is the case. And that's why we wanted to get him on. We wanted to see like, okay, but you know, people talk about, you know, Nebraska's been at the top of your magazine before and expected most improved teams and it hasn't. So why is this team different? You know, and so yeah,
I'd love to pick his brain apart because he's insanely accurate when it comes to his statistical analysis, and then just it's not even the statistics. He has an understanding of culture, and he has an understanding of what's that third aspect? You got statistics, you've got culture, and then you've got faculty. Faculty, understanding the complexities of a cohesive faculty. Like he just has like almost like a godlike power. It's weird to say it like that, but so that's really good. That's really good that he is making sure to really put a lot of money on Nebraska.
Yeah. And it you know, you would think he studies every single team each year in, year out. He follows because he's constantly updating his website based on how teams are doing and stuff like that. So as you know, he has stuff updating on his website and stuff like that. So he's, you know, he studies this stuff so closely and he follows so many different teams and does his research and analytics on so many different teams. That's why he's so good at what he does and so smart, because that's his life's work. Is like he doesn't focus on one specific team. He really puts the effort into every single team and shines through in his work, you know, and his accuracy. So comes a lot of hard work from him. That's why I love his magazine. And it just gave some great insights on that. So if y'all want to go check that out, it's a good listen. It's only about 5-6 minutes. So
okay, right there on the Voice of College Football, the main channel, right?
Yes, sir. Yep.
Yeah. Cool. Why don't we move on to Big Ten Media Days? What do you think, guys? Let's jump into some of this video.
Let's do it.
I don't have it set up as fancy as I did the David Sanders video. It was really hard to switch back and forth between the two layouts to be able to show the video in the middle there. So we're just going to throw these up there. First and foremost, just got a couple of comments from Ben Scott and a comment or two from both Gifford and Robinson. Then, of course, I've just got a whole bunch of Rhule clips. So I didn't do a whole lot. I didn't go too deep. I didn't watch hardly any of Big Ten Media Days because I wanted to be not filled with any ideas from the Big Ten network of what I was going to process. I wanted to just go, oh, shoot, I like what they had to say there and that kind of stuff. So I didn't really pull a whole lot of stuff about Dylan. Why? We've heard it all, right? What else are we going to hear at Big Ten Media Days that's much different than what we've heard already? So this was more of kind of I pulled some philosophical stuff that the guys and Rhule said.
Yeah.
So here's
I
Ben
love it.
Scott. Ben Scott jumping in and talking about offensive identity, and this kind of surprised me.
Yeah, I wouldn't say it's like bigger, but every play we have a opportunity to make the holes for the running back and have them hit the hole, and it's something that we pride ourselves in is moving guys off the line of scrimmage, and I think that's something that we are focused on, and it's kind of like our identity of our offense. Yeah, we brought in we brought in some great receivers, and we still have a lot of guys there, so we have a lot of depth at receiver, so it'll be good to sling the rock a little bit. But, our identity as an offense is always to go in those jumbo personnels and run the ball. So, it's a game of inches in the Big Ten. We got a lot of big guys lining up, a lot of big D linemen, big O linemen, and, we're going to get in those 12, 13 personnels and run the ball, and they got to try and stop it.
Did you guys expect to hear a whole lot about running the football at Big Ten Media Days?
Yes.
With Dylan coming in? I know for me, I was really surprised by, and he was kind of the only one that kind of said it. I mean, Rhule alluded to running the football, alluded to guys, and he'll talk a little bit about the guys in the running back room later on. But I'll start with you, Scott. Does that kind of surprise you that Ben kind of really emphasized that throughout his comments there at the side table?
I mean, it doesn't surprise me. I think our coaching staff, if they were wise, and I'm not a coach, so I'm armchair coach here, but if I were to project, let's say, what I would do if I were a coach, is I would not put all your eggs in one basket when it comes to our quarterback room and when it comes to the way that we may or may not be able to throw the ball. And so when I'm looking at that running back room, and when I'm looking at the returning experience on our offensive line, and when I'm looking at the physicality of our tight end room being basically an extension of our offensive line, I would put all of my money on making the identity of this year's offense be our running game. That's what I would have wanted to see, and getting a sneak peek of that philosophical, like you were saying, like more of like this is what we're going to probably be focusing on this year, specifically given the cards that we are dealt. Instead of trying to make, and coaching years past, trying to make a round peg fit in a square hole.
Right.
It seems like they understand what our strengths and our weaknesses are in our offense, and they're going to play to them. But it did surprise me that it came from Big Ten Media Days this early. I have a feeling that was I don't know if that was something he was supposed to say. I don't know. I don't know if that was something he was supposed to say, but yeah, because I think he may have made that mistake, and then there was one other thing that Ben Scott made a mistake of, which was recommending a food place to eat, and that kind of, unless for some reason he's got the ability to, through his NIL contracts, to not. Well, I don't know how that all works. I just know that players are not supposed to necessarily say, "Hey, I really like going to Laszlo's," because it's like, you can't do that, buddy. Like, you can't get free advertisement now. You are now a commodity. You are now a product. So I don't know, but I think that was maybe a slip up, but who knows? Maybe it was intended.
Coach, what do you think of those comments? And can I ask you an X's and O's question here real quick before you answer? I hate to throw a bunch of crap at you, but do you remember when Rhule made the comment at some press thing, I think at the beginning of fall or whatever, when he said something like, if you line up in too high safety, we will murder you? Was that reference to the running game or the passing game? Because I think if you're sitting in too high safety, it's a little easier to be able to run the ball, don't you think? I mean, as is an X and O's novice.
Yeah. No, I'd say that's 100% about the running game. Is if you're going to have those two high safeties back there, we're just going to use our numbers game and just destroy you like that. I definitely think Nebraska's whole philosophy this year, especially, I think that's a Matt Rhule philosophy in general, but I think particularly this year, they're really going to try and focus on the number.
What? Yeah, and Dylan obviously is not going to be running for 700 yards like Adrian did in his first season, right? He's not going to be that guy. But if he could throw for 2,600 like Adrian did and cut down the interceptions versus last year, and toss
that's my biggest
17,
thing.
18 TDs, that'd be great.
Yeah,
especially if you've got a 800-yard rusher in that running back room.
Yeah, and I think that's my biggest thing, and why I'm also excited about what Ben Scott said about running the football is, honestly, we all think very strongly in our heart that Dylan's going to be fantastic, right? But he's still a true freshman. Like, you never really know. So kind of like Scott said, I agree completely of like, do you really want to throw all your eggs in that basket right now on a true freshman? I'm not. I'd say probably not. That's just my opinion. And I also think that the way our team is built right now, we just need a quarterback to not turn the frickin' football over.
Yeah.
Like we saw it last season. The way this team is built, if we can limit the turnovers, we're going to be a fantastic team. That's just my pretty strong opinion on that, is the way this team's built. I think if I don't need a superstar season out of Dylan right now. The only number I want to really look at the end of the season is interceptions. And I think I could tell you how good our season went. We don't need him to be a superstar freshman. Now, if he is, am I going to be thrilled about it? You're damn right I am. But that's not what we need right now, if that makes sense. Like, we just need you to play smart, make good decisions, keep a hold of the football. The football is the program. That's what we need to instill right now. The football is the program.
How about you, Justin? What do you think of Scott's comments? Or was there any other insight you could read into what he said that maybe Nebraska's going to do with that running game? That maybe there's a guy in that running back room that they think is going to really blow up?
So I might be on an island here, but I don't think he messed up or was wrong in making these statements, because Satterfield's offenses historically, I'll put it this way. If there's one person that's going to be huddling while everybody else in the world is playing up tempo, it's Marcus Satterfield.
Yeah, you're right on that. You're right.
And huddling, he believes in 2 tight end sets. He believes in getting big. He believes in physicality. What is the biggest way to establish physicality and to impose your will upon your opponent, especially with some of these Pac-12 teams coming in here, is you got to establish the run game. Beat them in the trenches, wear them down. That's Big Ten football. And I don't think that's a secret. That's just the formula for Big Ten football. I think Ben Scott, being an offensive lineman love to get gritty in there, move people out of the way for the run game. So I think they're fired up to show what this offense can be. And I think what it is basically Satterfield offenses, they like to use, the run to set up the deep pass. And so the only way to do that, like he said, if you get 2 high safeties, we're going to gash you in the run game. When you bring those safeties down, we're going to beat you over the top. And that's essentially the way Satterfield likes to run his offenses. And now I feel like they have personnel and they have health. This running back room is going to be crazy good. Emmett Johnson has last year, coming into the season last year, I mentioned Emmett Johnson in my running back preview, and he got half of the first team reps last spring. A lot of people don't realize that. I was bullish on him coming into the season. He got his opportunity. But because Gabe Urban, and Ramir Johnson went down, now we have a situation where Gabe Urban's healthy, Ramir Johnson's healthy, Emmett Johnson, more experience. And we still have Quentin Ives coming off the bench, a guy who's shifty, a very Jamar Parker-like player, physical, from Jersey, can get in the slot and go from there as well. We're also going to use some short passing game to set up, as almost like a kind of like a run game, and like a West Coast run and shoot style, the way they use the pass as their run game. There's going to be a little bit of that as well, but I think they just want to get big, physical, load up with some of these physical running backs and really impose their will and wear these teams down and just start, letting Raiola manage the game more than put the team on his back.
And I think
I'm 100% with you on that.
Yep.
It pays dividends for Dylan's mental well-being, that he's the type if he's the archetype of a quarterback that we think he is, he's that kind of guy that is gonna just be unbelievably clutch, I think. And what I mean by that is, like, there's just gonna be moments when we're running. We'll almost forget that we have a 5-star quarterback. And there's gonna be those moments where he does a cross arm pass, from one hash mark to the other, and on an off balance foot, and just throws an absolute dot. And we're just going to be like, oh, wow. Okay. Yeah. And the only reason why he will be able to do that isn't just because he's talented, but because the coaches know how to play call to give him that advantage, where, maybe those defenders, those secondary guys and those linebackers kind of ease up a little bit because they forget that he's a 5-star quarterback, as we forgot to. And he goes in and just makes an absolute clutch play. And I think that this is this makes me so happy as a spectator. As much as I was critical of Marcus Satterfield last year, let's see what he can do this year with like Ben was saying, and like Justin and Ken, I'm sure we all can agree that if we just have a game manager quarterback, what does that do for Marcus Satterfield's play calling ability? And what does that do for his archetype of what he wants from his offense? I'd like to see it, because I was pretty convinced we should fire him after season 1.
I refused to criticize Marcus Satterfield because what he was up against last year, I don't think really a lot of people realize how hard that was. He didn't have the personnel to run his style of offense in year 1. He had to take over the quarterback room, the tight end room, and be the OC because Jake Peets fell through at the last second.
Yep.
And so he had to be the quarterback coach as well. And then all the injuries happened. And then the offensive line injuries happened.
Mm-hmm.
He had to run an offense around what he had. And so that offense he ran last year isn't necessarily see on the field this year.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, it'll be different for certain. Let's move on to the next clip of audio. I've only got 13 more to go. So if we go at this rate, be about midnight when we get done. So let's get rolling. And this, to me, is the guy that, in my opinion, at Big Ten Media Days, had the best looking suit.
Like you mentioned, the family atmosphere, right? Like, for me, growing up in Nebraska, family is very big to us. So for Coach Rhule to preach that at Nebraska is big, and it fits right in with who we are as Nebraskans and who we are as a state. And I think that's why we don't have that high turnover rate that you're talking about, and that's happening all over college football because guys like it here. They like the family atmosphere. They can all get on the train of what we want to do,
So that was complete departure from Ben Scott, because he wasn't talking necessarily about what the team's going to be doing. It was talking more about who the team is. And that was exciting to hear him talk about what everybody's talking about. And family from top of the mountain all the way down to the guy that's, washing the uniforms. So I don't know. There's really not a whole lot to say about that. I mean, he was asked about his suit, which was kind of a cool question, but he didn't really talk about much about it other than the guy put a liner in it that has ends on it, which was kind of cool.
That's cool.
He's one of those guys that drops like a 10-second answer every single time he's asked something, and they're asking him like some open-ended stuff, and he's like,
a football player.
Done.
Yeah.
Just get me out of here. I'm hungry.
Yeah. I thought I'd be.
Yeah, I liked what he had to say. That was actually probably the standout moment of the interview, because that is really what I have been paying close attention to when it comes to the feel for our culture. Is there has to be an answer to the question, why is nobody leaving? And the answer that seemed so blatantly obvious to me was that that Matt Rhule is curating a culture that feels like something that you can take with you for a lifetime. College isn't this 4-year ordeal that you go through to have an ends, there's a means to an end to it, and you're just there to be a superstar and get your degree and get out. Like, there's more to it. And I think that having a bunch of dudes almost adopt like a military mindset of like, no, once a Husker, always a Husker. You know, you're going to be remembered, especially in the state of Nebraska. You are going to be remembered. There's going to be a day where Garrett Nelson goes to some bar in some rural area of Nebraska just to grab some tater tots and a beer real quick. And he's 45, 50 years old, and somebody's going to recognize him. That's just how we are as a state. And so creating a culture in the locker room that reflects that culture within our civilian culture is it's absolutely important. And I love that he said that.
Yeah. And my thoughts on it are this, you know, when talking, you know, let's look at it this way. It's a developmental program now, right?
Mm-hmm.
We are in the world of NIL. So these guys aren't in a hurry necessarily to jump to the NFL and make that money. They know that's there. But the thing that we got to look at, right, is if you have a coach like a Frost where, let's say necessarily you don't think you're developing in a way that you should, those are the players that are going to jump to the NFL. What it says to me is about he's really showing these guys that he's invested in them as men and invested in them in developing, and they trust that he can develop them enough for them to pay off, for them to stay an extra year instead of going to the NFL. Ty Robinson, he said last year he felt like he could be better. He wanted a spring, you know, another spring fully healthy to be able to go out there and to be able to kind of develop and show what he can do. And he was he kind of had a third round draft projection, and so did Nash. But of course, Ty was the one that stayed. And a couple of those guys, Gifford even talked about it. They just have unfinished business. And again, all of those guys are in the same mindset, and they think they can come back and they can get better. And Gifford has said he wants to be a part of the return. And to me, that was more telling than anything. That means that he believes so much in this jump in year 2 that he's willing to stay an extra year to see that happen. And that to me is very telling.
Coach?
Oh, yeah. Something that I've really liked about this program since pretty much the day Matt Rhule got to Nebraska is how much a big of an emphasis it's been on family and everything. And it seems like every time I hear a player speak, I'd say, like, for instance, when I had Nick Henrich on my show not too long ago, he talked about a big thing of, like, a lot of those guys were going to transfer. Like, they're pretty dead set on transferring. And then they just kind of got the feel of how much of a family this whole thing's going to be. And that's something I think a lot of coaches talk about. Like, I'll say, like, every coaching staff I've ever been on, like, we all talk about that. We want to build this thing as a family. And I think every coach in America thinks that. But to actually see it, have the players go to Big Ten Media Days and say things like that, or have players that were only there for a year just graduate and then just say, like, no, this is really one big family. That's why I stayed. To me, that makes me very proud of our football program right now. And I'm glad to hear things like this.
Absolutely. I completely agree. Good thoughts, guys. Let's move on to Ty Robinson. I really appreciated some of the things he had to say, and he speaks specifically about why he stayed in this first clip.
You know, I came to this program wanting to leave it in a better place, and, you know, just to build that foundation. And I think with Coach Rhule, I saw that potential. Came back I decided after the Wisconsin game because it just didn't sit right with me. And I wanted to, you know, leave this place better than it was. And I think, you know, one more year of that, and especially to help me with my goals to go to the next level. And under Coach Rhule and Coach Knighton and Coach Campbell and his staff, just to, you know, get bigger, faster, stronger, and learn more football from those guys would be really beneficial.
I love the fact that he mentioned Campbell, because you can see the effect that Coach Campbell has had on this team. They're all bigger or they're all slimmer and yet stronger looking. I'm really excited to see what that translates into on the field for Ty and for Nash. I mean, what's it going to be like watching him play now that he's got back into all the leverage and everything that he knew as a championship wrestler, and he's going to be probably about 20 pounds lighter, so a little quicker. That half step that they were missing last year, I think they gain it more and start making life hell on some quarterbacks. So we'll start with you, Coach. What did you think there, listening to Ty?
I also really love that, and I pretty much agree with everything you just said of how important Coach Campbell has been to this program. And I am very excited, not just for Ty, but for the overall defensive line unit as a whole. That's probably the group I'm most excited about. Mike Delaware, NBNR podcast, we were literally texting back and forth yesterday, just Nebraska football stuff. We're talking about just like how much fun this defensive line group is going to be. Like, we're just sitting there naming names back and forth, and we're like, dude, we're like forgetting names off this list. That's how much fun this is going to be. And I think that really shows just kind of what he said about like part of the reason he came back. And like, I think Coach Knighton has done a fantastic job. I think Coach Campbell has really done a really good job with our offense. I mean, with everyone, but I think especially our big boys up front on both sides of the ball. I think he's done a fantastic job with those guys. So I'm very excited about the defensive line group this season. And Ty Robinson, hey, I love that guy. I love hearing him talk. I wish we could hear more of him talk because he's awesome.
Yeah, he's one of my favorites for sure. And I'm a little biased because I did happen to meet him at a gun range in Arizona last Christmas or a couple Christmases ago.
That's cool.
Right after Rhule was hired, as a matter of fact, and took a picture with me. So that was pretty cool. But
that's cool.
Justin, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, kind of what I alluded to earlier, because that's the second time he said it. I heard it before when he was talking, and he reiterated that last part about the development. But another thing too, coming back, with this defensive line, and let me ask y'all a question. When it comes to defensive linemen or defenders in general, would you? How often would you say you've heard the name Jamar Butler? Just be honest. Probably
heard
not
a lot.
enough. Not enough,
right? He led the team in sacks last year.
I know.
And people are talking about him as a breakout player this year. He led the team in sacks last year.
Yes.
We have a couple of, freshmen, All-American players, and we have guys that haven't even stepped up yet and that are going to be in the rotation and do really well. This defensive line is so stacked. And Ty Robinson is just a guy who has come in here and played the game the right way from the start. Again, it took some heat here and there in the Frost era, but really has turned it on and developed really well. He's a 4-star out of Arizona. I'm in Arizona, so I remember us recruiting him when Scott Frost was dipping heavy into Arizona. But that's another thing too, the fact that he's come in here, under a second staff. And I think what this also, brings home is the fact that he feels that this staff right here is much, more keen on his future. I believe before this, he had every anticipation of last year being his last year. But I think, because it was alluded to before, but I think this last year and being under Rhule and being under the staff and the fact that he mentions them by name, I think that says a lot again about what they're bringing in terms of his development. And I think we're going to see a big jump in this coming season. And I do think that he's going to improve, because didn't have a ton of sacks last year, but wrecked the game in the ways that he needed to. But I anticipate that sack number is going to go up this year. He can get a little bit better in a couple of, areas between him and Jamari. One's good in the run, one's good in the pass. But I expect that to balance out a little bit this year. And, with T Knight at the helm.
Yeah.
Scott.
You guys pretty much covered anything that could be said about it. The only thing that I would say is, like, does he just not look like if you were to AI generate a defensive lineman, has just the most mean mug face that you could ask for. He looks like he literally was transported from the 1990s pipeline to today. Like, he just has that menacing look, and I love it. He's definitely going to be one of those cornerstone guys that, as we kind of transition through these next coming years with Nebraska's program identity morphing back into something that we remember it being, I think we're going to remember a few of these guys, and Ty Robinson is definitely going to be one of them for me.
I agree.
Yeah,
it's not even just his face. It's being 6'6", 320, 30 pounds.
That helps.
Another part of it too.
Yeah, looks like if he flexed, he'd pop right out of the arms on his suit too. So that dude
had to get extra fabric sewn on.
So this next clip is a little shorter, and it's Ty again talking about some guys to watch for on that defense, and I think you'll like one of them. I know one of them, my ears perked up immediately, Justin.
Yeah, I feel like, when he gets the opportunity, Vincent Shavers is going to be a breakout dude if he gets that opportunity to come play. I know he'll play a lot of special teams. I think, defensive line-wise, Cam and Riley and Sua, Elijah, all those guys, and Kai, I just feel like all those guys are having really breakout guys because how big our rotation is.
Go ahead. Thoughts?
We just talked about this. Last time we talked, everybody's been. I think
Shavers.
I think there's smoke. Where there's smoke, there's a fire.
Yeah,
I think Vincent Shavers gets in a lot.
Yeah,
probably. And I think you're going to see Jamari Butler, like you were saying, Justin. He's been mentioned a lot by a lot of people in this offseason. He's put on 25 pounds of muscle.
Cam Lenhart is another one.
Cam Lenhart, Prince Willem. I can't say the name.
Yellen. Yeah.
But yeah,
Riley Van Poppel,
Riley.
Yeah.
As good and as fun as I think this offense is going to be, I'm excited. What I'm really excited about is if we can establish the run, if we can start 5-6 minute drives with regularity, this defense is going to be so much more well-rested, so much more explosive and fast at the end of a game, where we tend to get gassed and we lose it, right? So that's what I'm excited about. I'm excited to see what Tyrod said about Shavers for sure.
Yeah.
And some of the other guys. So
Shavers going to no doubt be a stud this year, and he's going to get plenty of time and probably rotate with Jamin Wright,
Yeah.
So any other thoughts on those guys, or do we just want to go keep scrolling? Because we're getting right here to Rhule's comments now. Now it gets fun.
Yeah, let's get on.
Alrighty.
Yeah.
Here we go. This is Rhule's opening statement at the main press conference, in case anybody missed it.
Good afternoon. Thank you on behalf of our team. I appreciate everyone covering us. Thank you to Commissioner Petiti and the entire Big Ten staff. Welcome to the 4 new teams, especially UCLA, who I spent some time as a student at. So UCLA is always near and dear to my heart. So welcome. Very, very proud to represent the University of Nebraska. We brought 3 of our best student athletes here, Ty Robinson, Isaac Gifford, and Ben Scott. If you'll just allow me for a second, we brought them. They're all college graduates, over 94 starts, working on their master's degrees. But if anything else, in a day and age in college football where everyone's always talking about who's transferring out, talking about recruiting, these guys and a couple others made the decision to come back and not go to the NFL but play another year. So I'm so grateful to them. I think what we'll see in this new era of college football is the teams that can stay together and have veteran staffs, veteran teams, are going to be really good. And I think they've given us a chance to have a really good team this year. So grateful to them. It's been an exciting time for us. It's a great time to be a Husker. Troy Dannon coming in and taking over, I think, has really brought a positive energy to the athletic department. 5 Big Ten championships this year in the athletic department, multiple athletes representing us in the Olympics. Finished 22nd in the all sports standings, and so now it's our time to do our part. We think we have a really good team, and we think that we're a team that people are going to have to deal with this year. And I've liked the way that they've worked. We finished the semester with a 3.241 cumulative GPA, the highest in school history. The guys are getting it done in the weight room. They're getting it done in the classroom. Now we've got to get it done on Saturdays. So with that, I'll take your questions.
Wow, that's what it looks like to have an opening statement prepared, man.
Unlike
sorry,
UCLA.
I had to take a little shot there, but
Sean Foster getting strays, catching strays on the Nebraska show.
I didn't catch that press conference, so I have no context
You
for
didn't
it.
miss
But I'll
anything.
trust you.
you
that it
didn't
wasn't
miss
like
much, man.
that.
You didn't miss much.
Yeah.
Oh, I did learn some very important topics, though. UCLA is in LA, so
Los Angeles. That's right.
So is USC.
so is USC.
Yeah.
I didn't know that until he said that. So thank you to Sean Foster for that.
Nah, but Poor guy. He was a position coach, so he's never had to step up there and have a prepared speech in front of guys. And I liked his.
I'm such a jerk.
No. I was joking too, but I liked his rebuttal afterwards. He's like, "How many points did we get for that?" Exactly. Like, I'm here to coach the football team. So
Fair enough.
Exactly.
He saved it.
He saved it. I remember hearing a lot of some of our buddies over at the Husker Cuzcast back in the day when Donovan Raiola was first hired, and he did his first presser, and he just was like, he's not used to doing that, right? He's not used to dealing with 85 members of the media at a college football team. And they were just like, well, how is he going to be able to communicate to the guys if he can't figure out how to talk to the media? And I'm like, why the hell should we care whether he can talk to the media as long as he can talk to his guys, right? Or teach his guys what they need. So
it's public speaking.
Anyway, it's nice to hear an opening statement from a guy that is absolutely comfortable in his own skin and knows exactly what needs to be fixed. But he didn't have to yammer on for 6 minutes. It was a minute and a half, 2 minutes, and boom, let's get to the questions. So any other thoughts on what Rhule had to say?
I think the biggest takeaway that I had, was in listening to when he was talking about how good Nebraska is going to be. Matt Rhule has never been a guy who sits there and just tells people what they want to hear. Matt Rhule's been very transparent, honest, and he doesn't bring up players unless he knows that player has worked his tail off to be mentioned. He's not just going to mention a player willy-nilly. He even said when Raiola walked onto campus, he's just a guy. He's just a part of a recruit in this class. He's not a 5-star when he walks on this campus. He's got to prove himself. He's got to earn his stripes. And the same can be said about this team. So I do think that there's a lot to be said in him coming out publicly and almost setting an expectation, setting a standard for this team. And in a way, I don't know if that was to tell the players like, hey, I have this confidence in you, but also give the fans his vote of confidence, but also do it in a way where, again, he didn't promise us anything last year. He said last year, he even said in a press conference, this is what you hired me for. This year one wasn't supposed to be a huge success. He's like, you hired me for this process. You have to trust the process. Carolina hired him. He had a 7-year plan in Carolina. They did not let him execute any of that plan. We've already seen that starts from David Tepper, the owner of the Panthers. He's the problem there, right? And so he was brought in to do this in his way. And so last year he was like, we're doing this my way. And now he's coming out a little bit more. And he's like, we're going to be relevant. He said, we don't like being talked about, 8-4, 10-2, because then we're expecting 4 losses. We're expecting 2 losses. He wants to win every game, and he's confident in this team to be able to adapt and overcome and do that. And so I think that was a lot. And I don't know if that was an opening statement or in a question. So I apologize if I jumped ahead. But
that's okay. I don't remember half the crap I recorded. So
but then
we'll figure it out as we go.
But then just overall, he speaks life into these guys. He speaks life in his team, and they go where he goes. It's no secret that these guys, they even have started to kind of in some way speak a lot of the same things he has. You can tell the impact he's had on these players, and the fact that he's willing to come out there on Big Ten Media Days and kind of be like, this is the standard we're setting for ourselves. And not only that, he talked about the GPA being the highest it's ever been, and all that stuff. Another further indication that he's building young men and not just football players.
Sure. Yep. Absolutely. Good points. Excellent points. Anything from you, Scott? Or are you just ready to move on to the next one, get into the meat of what he had to say?
Let's get into the meat.
All right, here we go. This is him talking about turnovers from last year.
It's a blemish. It's nothing I've ever done before to be minus 17, right? And that's, we gave the ball away 31 times. We only took it away 14, so both sides have onus. But to give the ball away 31 times, and our season would have been different had that not happened. The great news is then when you look back at a season where we were 5-7, and with 2 games left, that we were still in the math to get to Indianapolis, and you have something that outrageous. You understand that, hey, if we just fix 1 or 2 things, we can be a really good team. We don't have to do an overhaul. We don't have to fire a bunch of coaches. We don't have to change the offense and defense. We really just have to win the turnover battle. And so I think anytime you want to seek change, the first thing you need is buy-in. I think by the end of the year, our players truly understood that, man, we have to protect the football and we have to take it away. We've practiced it. The thing that I've tried to do is, I want to be a lifelong learner. I'm in Texas this past week at coaching clinics, and I'm sitting listening to coaches talk, high school coaches, college coaches, about the way they're doing things, because we have to find a way to go from -17 to +7. We have to find a way to get that done, and so we're going to practice it. We're going to coach it. We're going to allocate playing time based upon who protects the ball, but also who takes it away. And but I think the buy-in came from our players early on. They recognize we need to do this because we have a really good football team. And you know what? If you turn the ball over 3 times, you're probably going to have a close loss. The close losses at Nebraska are not an affliction. It's, we don't need to get out a voodoo doll. We need to hold the ball properly and knock it out, make one more catch, have a little bit more confidence, and go make one more play and win a couple games, and all of a sudden we'll be talking in a different tone.
Don't have to get out a voodoo doll. We're not cursed, is what he's saying.
Hey, I just have to say, I love that he says we don't need a voodoo doll, but I just want to publicly say that if he would have said that we need to get one, I would have bought plenty of them for everybody. Just I'm fully behind this, man. I'll do whatever it takes.
Love that.
It's an affliction. I love that opening. It's an affliction. I'm like, oh my Lord. Oh my Lord. Yeah, it was painful to watch, I mean, it didn't start well right from the beginning. Jeff Sims was a turnover machine. And then it just seemed the snowball just kept rolling down the hill and getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And I think if you get the snowball of taking the ball away, rolling downhill this next year and not giving it away, man, there's no reason you're not winning at least 6 of the first 7 if you get on the positive side of the turnovers.
100%. And look, even Fongway, like I see Fongway, let's be honest here, Rhule is nobody but himself to blame for the -17. I don't necessarily think that's the case, because later on in this, he spoke about how he wants players to play through mistakes and gain their confidence. And he said that's how you get a confident player. You let them play through their mistakes. Okay. What we got to understand is last year wasn't supposed to be the year that Nebraska, was taking the jump. So if he expected to have Jeff Sims for multiple seasons, it makes sense for him to come in here and give him an opportunity to be able to show himself and be able to show that see if he can turn it around, because he knows he didn't put all his eggs in year one. So even when he was talking about multi-year quarterbacks, but what he said was, as the season went along, he asked Ron Brown, what is the problem here? Ron Brown said, you're not coaching it hard enough. And then he said, as the season went along, it got later in the season, and then everything kind of started to click and the players started to realize, I need to hold that ball a little tighter, and started to be more cognizant of it. It's very easy to get in the flow of the game and not think about those things, because you don't necessarily want to be thinking out there. So it has to become muscle memory. So he really worked on, coaching those things. And he said it was a situation he'd never been in before. So to sit here and say nobody but himself to blame, I don't think that's necessarily the case. I don't think this is a blame game. I don't see why every time something happens, we have to just blame somebody. That's a stupid mentality to have. I'm sorry. It's just ridiculous. I'm tired of people sitting here saying we have to blame this person. We have to blame this person. It's getting ridiculous. He started coaching them as the season went along. They got better in terms of what he was talking about, in terms of holding onto the football or being more cognizant of it. Now they have ability in practice where he said they're having guys punch at it in practice. They're having guys train what these defenses were doing in some instances to knock the ball out. I'm not talking about Jeff Sims dropping fumbles and fumbling snaps. That's a mental thing. That's another thing people don't understand. Turnovers are very, very mental. When you're putting a lot of pressure on yourself and you're tight, especially at the quarterback position, it's very easy to overthink catching that snap and just kind of it bounce off your hands, if it's a bad snap or even if it's not. He was thinking a lot. As a quarterback, if you're thinking, you're behind. And he already was in a position where he was only throwing 50-some-odd% at Georgia Tech. They wanted him to be a 65% completion percentage guy. They didn't have the personnel. They didn't have a quarterback coach dedicated to come in there and do it. And another thing, we were supposed to have Casey Thompson coming into the season. People forget that. People seem to just forget that Casey Thompson was a part of his team. Wasn't supposed to transfer out when Jeff Sims came in. There was supposed to be a QB competition, and then that was gone. So I'm sorry to get fired up there, but I'm tired of this whole blame. It's year one. Things happened. Let's start looking in year two after the development happens, then we can start pointing fingers. Then we can start saying, okay, I think this is on this person. Give them a year to get in there, develop, work with these guys over a season, and then we can start pointing the finger a little bit.
Good point. Good point. I'm kind of in that same boat with you. I don't think Rhule was handed a crap sandwich in many ways, and especially as the year went on and injuries piled up, and the fact that he accumulated a year 2 for him as a coach record in year 1 tells me that the guys really did buy into what he wanted to do. They're good enough. The talent is there last year to go 8-4, hell, 9-3 if some of those games go the right way, and they don't turn it over 17 more times than the other team did. So, yeah, I'm not into the blame game either. For the longest time, I struggled with that myself. It's easy. Oh, this is all on Frost. This is all on Shenander. Or this is all on whoever. And it's like, well, a lot of people are cooking in the kitchen, and some of them aren't cooking very well. So,
like I said, at a certain point, you can do that. You know, if it's 2, 3,
year
4
one,
years
year
into
one,
the tenure, but it's year 1, right? And we if we're able to sit here and talk about all the things that went wrong and use those as reason we're going to get better in year 2, we can't sit there and be like, it's all Rhule's fault.
right.
You're literally arguing about what went wrong last year and also pointing the finger at the coach and saying it's all his fault. You're contradicting yourself. Use this. It's emotion. To get people just thinking with emotion, they just want a scapegoat.
Yeah. Well, you know, it's also easy that everybody's kind of probably viewing Rhule through the lens of, well, he failed at Carolina. You know what I mean?
But they
I'm
don't
not
get it.
excusing it. It's 2 totally different types of football, 2
He had a
totally
7-year
different
plan.
types of situation.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
yeah,
He told them he had a 7-year plan, and they
Right.
did not let him execute that. David Tepper's 100% to blame there, and it's
Yeah.
widely known that because he's not letting the actual general manager and coaches make decisions.
Mhm.
right. Any other thoughts on that, guys? Or I've got some really cool stuff coming up where
Sorry, but
no, you're good.
I'm ranting.
Abby Harris, a friend of ours, also known as Abby something on Twitter, is official member of the Go Big Redcast now.
Nice.
And
Yeah, saw that the other night.
she was at Big Ten Media Days because she happens to be the main squeeze of a young man named Dustin Schutte who writes for SI.com. So they were there together, and after Dustin asked the Purdue coach about whether or not he ate that peanut butter burger, which of course the Purdue coach still hasn't done that, and I don't think Dustin will ever forgive him.
I will never eat that.
I wouldn't either. Sorry, Dustin, if you're watching. But Abby had a really cool question for Matt Rhule about, well, here, check this out.
Hi, Coach. Abby Harris, Go Big Redcast. After completing your first season in the Big Ten, what advice do you wish you would have received?
Well, one of the things about being at Nebraska, you know, you do get a lot of advice. I mean, you know, Coach Osborne's there all the time to help. Coach Solich is there to help. You know, Coach Osborne tried to warn me about the weather. He tried to warn me about the wind, and I heard it, but I didn't. It was until it was like 30 miles an hour in my face that I was like, oh, Coach Osborne wasn't lying. I think the biggest thing I regret from last year was you know, when you're in pro football, it's kind of quiet. And there aren't bands and things like that. The crowd isn't. And we started our first 2 games last year on the road in hostile environments. Minnesota, you know, they did a great job. They had a gold out for their first game. And so just getting readjusted to the crowd noise and the passion of the fans in the Big Ten, the atmospheres we're going to have to go into, we have to be better on the road. And so I wish I would have taken that. I would have taken that to heart and gotten that advice. But I am so blessed. I mean, I get to coach college football, and some days I've got George Darlington, legendary secondary coach. I mean, I might have Tommy Frazier or Eric Crouch. I might have Coach Osborne there. I might have Coach Solich there. Like, it's a football coach's dream.
Football coach's dream. To go from, wow, I wish I would have done this better, to this is a football coach's dream. That's an interesting contrast. Number one. Number two, you know, that he was so transparent, that he was so willing to go, yeah, basically said I didn't believe Coach Osborne when he said it was going to be really, really windy. And then next thing I know, there it is blowing right in my face. And I realized I didn't trust the man. So interesting to hear that level of transparency and self-awareness. The self-awareness is what I really appreciate.
Yeah.
You've been quiet, Scott. Any thoughts?
I didn't want to start talking again. Somebody else.
No, I just like, sometimes I just like to listen, but I can say a lot.
Yeah.
But I guess the one thing I would say is that, just you really don't know what 30 miles an hour with a wind chill that's around 20 to 30 degrees colder than the real field temperature is like until you're in Memorial Stadium specifically. Because I've walked to and from Memorial Stadium in winter-like conditions, and I was much warmer walking to and from than actually in the stadium.
Yeah, I've been there too, man.
Yep.
Yeah, and I was on the north side of the stadium for that game specifically. There was one Wisconsin game that we went to with a whole posse of my friends, and we were on the south side, and it was sunny, but it was blistering and miserable. It was there. That sun basically was non-existent. And it shows humility. It shows a sense of like, okay, if he can be honest about this, like what, why should I not believe him? I can at least say that I know he believes a lot of things about Nebraska, just based on that, being able to be, and Abby did ask a really good question.
That was a great question.
It was.
That's like almost like sitting down with I don't know. It's like grandpa advice. You're asking for grandpa advice. Like what is the fundamental thing that you wish you would have known from last year? And so that's a great question.
Good stuff. Yeah.
I think the part of it that sticks out for me is we heard Matt Rhule this offseason talk about he needs a big body quarterback that can throw the deep ball into the wind. And I think that's a factor in this. I don't think he realized with that wind kicking just the type of quarterback and arm strength that he would necessarily need to be able to push the ball downfield throughout even those, tough circumstances where it's a lot colder, the ball gets a lot, harder, and it's a lot, the wind's kicking and you need some velocity on that ball to make sure it keeps its trajectory. If you throw a little softball, soft pitch up there, it's going to take it, so you need a guy who can really big body, who can push with arm strength, who can push this ball into the wind and be able to connect with his target. And I think that was a lot of what he was alluding to. And just with the atmospheres themselves, it's just a different ball game in terms of places where he's been before. Baylor, Temple, you're not going to have the same level of atmospheres there. So probably preparing them with some piped in crowd noise to really work on maybe silent counts and things of that nature to prevent pre-snap penalties, infractions, and stuff like that.
Good stuff. Coach, anything?
Kind of like what you guys had said, though. I just really appreciate the honesty and transparency. I think that's really important from Rhule. And that's something I feel like I've always got from him. So I've kind of talked about this before. I've had the privilege of meeting Coach Rhule a couple different times, and he has the ability to just sitting down with you, one, make you feel like it's the most important conversation he's had all day. But two, he's honestly very transparent and honest about things. They're like, here's what we need to do. If we don't do this, I deserve to be fired. Just things like that of how transparent he is about things. And that's something, I'm not throwing any shade at anywhere, so take this how you will, but it is very refreshing to see this from a Nebraska coach, willing to be transparent, take some accountability for things. I love that.
Last thing on this to bounce off of that, he had spoken in a press conference before about how year one, the coaching staff will take more of the blame, but in year two, the players have to start taking that. And I think he's still taking accountability for what happened last year. This is his way of doing it. Yeah. But going to year two, now that he knows these things, has learned these different things like coaching turnovers, et cetera, now it's going to be on the players. And that's where that trend needs to be had.
Yep.
Absolutely. Good stuff, guys. Good stuff. Let's move on to when he sat at the table that the players were sitting at earlier. He got a little bit more candid, a little bit more in depth with his answers. This particular question was about John Butler, and then of course he kind of transitioned into talking about Coach Coop leaving. So thank God this is a longer clip because I've got to pee. So
How long? How long? Because I do too.
3 minutes.
All right, let's do it.
Let's do. Off we go.
Obviously, it's not the time where you want to make a change. With that being said, so I approached John earlier in the spring when we were thinking the analyst rule was going to pass. I wanted to hire another coach to work in the secondary along with Evan. So, we've brought in Rashawn Melvin, who played for me in Carolina, and he's going to work with the corners. Adam DeMichael, who was on offense last year, after the season, we moved him over to defense. Chevin, who's our GA on defense, we moved into a recruiting role. So we had kind of some musical chairs. So I reached out to John like, hey, you're out. Would you want to do this? And it was just not the right time, right? He's got a 13-year-old son. Well, Evan resigns. The job's open. We interview a bunch of people. John's 2 towns down from me at the beach. I said, hey, come down and talk to me. And I think at that point, because football season was right around the corner, I think he was ready. And, we've known each other a long time. I think it just made more sense. So his football acumen, the fact that he's been a coordinator, his intelligence, you talk to him for 5 minutes and you're like, okay, I get it. I think he's going to make our players better. I can't say too much. I mean, the way I've always approached it, whether it's a kid transferring or a coach resigning, like that's their story to tell. So, Evan can share his reasons for leaving the program, but, he's a friend, he's a colleague. Done a lot for me. I love him. I hate that the time came to an end, but it came to an end. And when things happen, it's my coaches leave, players leave, guys hit the portal. It's my job to make the program better. And so I think we got better with John, and wish Evan the best. The guys going on the road, I'll wait till I have to with the NCAA. Because we'll see how things play out. Like you have to declare it every year at the academic year. So whatever day that is, I'll say that. But some of the guys that have been in the program are now going to have coaching opportunities. So Keith will now take on more role of coaching. Like Ron Brown's going to coach the fullbacks and he's going to coach the returners. Like, I'm trying to have with our size roster two coaches at each position who can work with the young people. Because you think about it, like if you're in the D line room. You've got Ty Robinson, who should be on level 5 of defensive line play. And then you've got David Huffkin coming in, who's, not played football in the United States yet. You have Keona, who just got here. So I want a coach in T Knight, and then that's why we hired Ira to come in. And now he's a GA, but we've tried to do that. Jack Potenza's taken over the Jack linebacker spot. He did that. He did that as a GA in the spring, anticipating this because he could coach as a GA, and now he'll take over. So we've restructured a bunch. And again, the whole mentality though is not to have a bunch more coaches, but to have 2 coaches at every position to help aid in development. And then some of those areas, like I said, fullbacks, returners, things like that. But how exactly we're going to all lay it out, we're going to probably announce that here soon. But I'm happy to discuss things as we're here. So.
Oh, I forgot about the fact that I had also left that clip there at the end of where he talks about the role of the new coaches or the new NCAA rule and all that, and ability to let some of these analysts coach and whatnot. So I thought that was very insightful as well. The fact that he wants to have 2 guys that are specifically for each position.
I think that's huge.
Mm-hmm. Equally,
Well,
I think it's huge to have Ron Brown back with the headset on and actually able to coach returners and fullbacks. I tweeted it out that I thought that there was going to be a whole new level of intensity going to come from not only those 2 spots but also the rest of the team, because when he was first hired by Bo to come back and he was coaching tight ends, immediately the wide receivers were suddenly good at blocking again downfield for the running backs. So that's going to pay dividends all across the team, having Ron really be on the field and affecting play.
I think it's one of those things that I've thought about before, but like never really like burdened the weight of the concept of like, you have a spectrum of experience on any given team. You've got guys who just need the fundamentals to be reinstilled into them. And then you have guys who can get advanced. And you have guys that want to refine their craft. And having one coach to be able to balance all that, when you've got a whole group of guys over here that just need the fundamentals really honed in and make it muscle memory. And then you've got this whole group over here who wants to get to NFL level handwork and NFL level footwork and NFL level finesse moves. Like, the contrast between the two has got to be, and in this day and age, in college football, must have been virtually impossible. You used to be able to get away with a lot of that stuff, 15 to 25 years ago, because there just was less regulation in the NCAA. And as the NCAA has become more regulated, it's become more constrained, and then you get bottlenecks of coachability. And so I think it's great. I think it's absolutely awesome. Like you guys were just saying, having somebody with the girth or girth. Ooh, that was a terrible word. You have somebody with the breadth of experience, like Ron Brown.
I wasn't going to do it, but you mentioned it.
There we go. It's like, oh, wait a second.
I was like, all right, I can say it then.
Wait a second here. Okay. Yeah. So somebody with the amount of cleavage that he does of coachability.
Well, there goes whomever coming in the studio.
He can really take a load off for guys,
Yeah, pause.
Yeah. So I think that's honestly really valuable. I think it's great that we can have analysts getting their coaching stripes. Getting your stripes as a coach comes from those analytic roles and being able to apply it. And I mean, I don't understand how people are able to. I mean, I guess it does. You either have it or you don't. Yeah. You got the it factor as a coach or you don't. It's program dependent, but I think that this is just going to pay dividends for all of college football. Like, obviously it's going to be an even playing field. This isn't going to be something that's going to give Nebraska a unique advantage because everybody else is able to do it now too. But this is more the mold of what Nebraska, I think, to go way out into right field here, Matt Rhule and the coaching staff's ability to foresee the fundamental problem of NIL that is going to cause for the NCAA, and being the light on a hill, being the bastion of stability, and being able to create as the identity of the NCAA shifts naturally in one direction, how can we set ourselves apart in this other way? I think that we even though everybody else can do the exact same thing with their analysts and their GAs and all this stuff now, I think Nebraska potentially has the ability to really, really separate themselves from the rest of the pack based on what they do now. Mm-hmm. Set the example, like the most flat. What is it? The purest form of flattery is imitation. Let's create something at Nebraska that other coaches want to imitate. That's all.
Good stuff.
Yeah. Go ahead. Yeah, I think just being a developmental program, like all of us, like any talking figure in Nebraska is talking about how this is going to be a developmental program. Matt Rhule has a developmental system. Well, having all these extra coaches is literally exactly what we need for that. And he's talked about it for, I don't know, the last several months of how bad he wants this to pass and how he's advocating for this rule to pass. So I think, although I agree with the statement that, everyone's going to be on an even playing field, I think this benefits Nebraska a lot in ways that it might not benefit, especially immediately. I think long-term it will, but I think immediately, because Rhule's already had these plans on what he wants to do when this gets passed. He's been trying to get this passed for a while. So he's already had these plans. So I think short-term, this helps Nebraska more than it helps other programs out there.
I think I was just saying, like what you were just saying, I think this is the potential. I'm going to get real crazy here, guys. This is the blueprint potential for Nebraska to invest in the thing that made Nebraska good in the 90s, but today. Because there's no way we can just take exactly what we did in the 90s and apply it to 2024. College football has evolved way past that. It's the only reason why Nebraska was so good for so long was because they did things that nobody else was doing yet. And so this is our opportunity to do that again. And it's going to be a couple other programs. It's not just going to be Nebraska, the one single college football program that's also doing it. There's going to be a few more. I think Dabo Swinney, as much as people want to dog on him, I think that Clemson is going to outlast a lot of other Power 4, top Power 4 schools because of what he is preparing in his program. I don't know if I wouldn't put money on it, but I wouldn't be surprised. So yeah, go Big Red.
I just don't think he's enough of a player in NIL. That's all.
Neither do I.
Yeah, but kind of going to what, like, just real quick, going back to the John Butler hire too. What was interesting is he did mention that we got better with John, and that was an important statement.
Yeah,
and I think he truly believes that. Evan Cooper, again, worked with him for a long time. I think there's something that can be said about that experience together and them speaking the same language, him understanding his culture, him being able to speak on what Matt Rhule believes. He's basically another extension of Matt Rhule, and having to bring in a guy like Butler, we get better, especially with the talent wise, but it's building that communication style, him learning, Butler came from the NFL, really learning this 3-3-5 a little bit more because it's not utilized, as a base defense in the NFL. Really, it's more of a package thing. You got your nickel and stuff like that. But him coming in here and learning, and he's talking about how he hit the ground running, and he's coming here. He wants to learn before he starts coaching these guys, so he doesn't coach them the wrong way. So that's a big part of that. And then just going into drew a blank because I have ADHD. What was the second part we were talking about on that clip?
He talked specifically about Cooper.
The second part. I wanted to make a comment of what we were just talking about.
We were just talking about just the change of college football landscape.
Sorry, the 105 scholarships and the couple changes with coaches and stuff like that. Yeah, so them being on the field, and I think coaches like Ron Brown, I think what's flying under the radar is people see fullbacks and are like, oh my God, him coaching the returners. Me and Wilson talked about this, is huge. We haven't had a return game. That is an extension of your offense. That's going to take pressure off your offense. I don't think enough people are talking about how the return game needs to improve, because we talk about the defense taking pressure off of Raiola. We talk about the defense taking pressure off the offense. What is the quickest way to take the pressure off your offense? Get a return game going. Get them to get, Adam Carricker said it yesterday, 10 yards per return. That's 10 yards less. That's one less first down that you have to get from your offense. And again, Matt Rhule, even more so to kind of reiterate the point about this being more helpful to Nebraska. Matt Rhule speaks about how there's a ceiling on athleticism, but there's not a ceiling on skill set. So what he's able to do is he has a group of guys that he's going to be bringing in here to play immediately, need them ready to play immediately. They're going to be learning concepts. They're going to be learning the playbook. They're going to be learning different, looks and things like that. And these guys like David Huffkin and, a couple other guys that we have that don't have a lot of experience playing football. Those guys are going to be able to work the fundamentals with these other coaches, and they're going to be able to slow the game down and really break it down for them to the fundamentals. And that's something you just didn't have the ability to do before, because your staff needed to be prepping everybody and get them ready to go. And I think this even more so opens the door for him to get players that fit that mentality, and that now that it's confirmed that they're going to be able to work with these coaches on the side too.
Good point. And speaking of coaches, so one of the clips that I grabbed was him speaking on his philosophy of hiring coaches out of the high school ranks, and I figured you'd get a kick out of this, Ben. So I grabbed.
Now, if you look at my track record, at 3 colleges, I've hired 15 high school coaches. That doesn't include Dr. Elza, who, if you were in Texas with us, she can't walk 5 feet without someone stopping her. And a lot of some of those guys, like Ira as a GA, but at Penn State, at Temple, I hired Terry Smith, head coach at the Gateway, to be our receivers coach, and the next year James hired him away from me. I went to Baylor, I hired Joey McGuire, who's now the head coach at Texas Tech, right out of Cedar Hill High School. I hired Sean Bell and David Wetzel. Sean Bell is now the quarterback coach at Houston, so that was a priority. When I got here, I hired Bob Wager, and I hired Phil Simpson. Phil Simpson was the Miami-Dade Coach of the Year coming out of Homestead High School. So, some of those guys get hired away sometimes. Phil got hired to Florida State. Bob left; he's back in Texas. But I believe in hiring high school coaches, and it's not. People think it's for recruiting. Their connections are over like a year later. It's because kids gravitate towards them. So when I spend more time with high school coaches than I do with college coaches because I'm out recruiting. So when I see one that I think is great, I say to myself, I'm going to hire that guy. And so, they come to our place and they do probably the same amount of work, except they don't have to teach class, and they make usually twice as much money. So it's a lot. I don't know. I think it's great. I think it's a great thing for us. And so I'm excited Jamar joined us. I think he'll be with us for a long time.
You know what, Luke? We hope so. We hope Coach Rhule grabs something for Ben to do.
Hey.
That would be pretty cool.
I check my phone every day. I'm waiting on the phone call, man.
Well, give him a call, Coach. If you happen to be watching this for any crazy reason, give him a call. You certainly can't go wrong with this guy. I mean, he's a little crazy. He's on here with us, so I don't know if that's good for him or bad for him. But I found that fascinating because, number one, this is what made Osborne great was, he got Frank Solich out of a high school. He got Milt Tenneper, Dan Young, the two guys that were instrumental in engineering the pipeline. Those guys all came out of high school, and that established those connections in Nebraska that we needed to get the best players from the state in. So I think he understands the value, and I just appreciate the philosophy. Hey, I spend more time with high school coaches than I do with college coaches. That's what he hires these guys for. They're the ones coaching the team. He's the one making sure he keeps funneling good people into the program. And it really does have to start at the high school level, not just with the guys with the shoulder pads on, but the guys wearing the whistles and the headsets. How about that for a poetic little comparison, huh? Analogies. Oh, yeah. You got to use them.
No, I think that I really like Coach Rhule saying stuff like this because these are the same things that he says privately in a room to high school coaches or just sitting and having a one-on-one conversation. So this is, again, kind of what I talked about, how he is always so open and honest and transparent with everything. Like, this isn't just things he says to high school coaches like me sitting in the cafeteria of a high school like we were last March, right? These are things that he actually believes in and things that his actions show. And that I'm really happy that this man feels. I'm one of the biggest Matt Rhule fans in the world. I'm just going to say, if you listen to me talk for too long, you're going to know that I love this man. I believe in a lot of the same things he believes in. And I know that when the day comes that I am a head football coach, I'm going to try and emulate a lot of these things because I fully believe in a lot of the things that he says and does. And I'll probably never get to a level at head coach at the University of Nebraska. But if I did, I also would bring in a lot of high school coaches because, kind of like you said, like, kids gravitate towards that. And something that I'm most proud of in my coaching career, as short as it's been, just because of how young I am, of just like, I know that every player I've coached, I'm one of the more popular guys. Like, kids tend to gravitate towards me. And that's something that I think that he brings guys in that the kids gravitate towards. And that's so important. And I can't state enough how important that coach to player relationship is.
Yeah. And another thing I'm surprised, I guess it does not on him to mention. He doesn't really talk about it much. He has in a couple of instances, but not only just going to the high school ranks to find quarterbacks, he does something else that's, unique in the ways that he wants players from his team to be on his staff if he feels they're ready. Graduate assistants, like he's notorious in his career for turning players into coaches. And I think this goes along with kind of what we saw in the winter Matt drill, or in just kind of in the winter in general, when they split the team up into 6 teams, they had 3 fields, they kind of had that competition going, but the players that were, had nagging injuries, or the guys that they kind of knew were ready, those guys were on the side coaching these guys and working with them. And I think that's another factor too. It's not only he's getting guys from high school, but he's also getting these guys from within the program And he wants those guys to be promoted if they have the mind for it. Jalen Gramstead is a guy that I think is immediately going to become a GA.
Yeah.
So that's another aspect to it too, that I would be curious to see the number of guys that he's brought in from, from that, or the number of guys that he's transitioned over to staff from that.
You got Rob Dvorak. You've got Terrence Knighton. Both of them played for him at Temple, I believe. So yeah, you're absolutely right.
Yeah.
I mean, the coaching tree, he's starting to get kind of this.
The McGuire.
Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah.
McGuire.
Yeah, I think McGuire played it for him at Baylor.
Yep. So, yeah, he's kind of getting that Bill Walsh / Bill Belichick, if you will, coaching tree of guys that just, they come up under him, and then next thing you know, they're off. They got their own teams, Joey McGuire and other guys in pretty prominent roles in bigger schools. So
think about that for retention too. The guys that they played with most recently, the leaders on that team, are also going to be guys that can talk them into staying and be like, it's guys that they know on a player level, and they transition to coach. And I think that matters because they know how to communicate with each other a lot better than some of the coaches know how to communicate with the players.
They speak the language, and they're a peer in a sense. That coach that used to be a player can look at the guy that he's recruiting and saying, I've done it for this guy before. This is the evidence of how it works when you're done playing. Come on, we need you. So, Scott, you got anything at all, or we want to throw down with the next one? I think I took a couple out because I thought they were a little redundant, but I thought this was interesting, what he was talking specifically about quarterback position and how he decided to, not go the grad transfer rate.
Oh, yeah. No, I think, there's a lot of people in my year at the end of the season saying, hey, Matt, and people that I trust saying, Matt, let's go get a 1-year quarterback. A lot of people like, man, like, if we got to win. We got to get some momentum. Let's go get a 1-year veteran senior quarterback. And I'm just always one of those guys. I'm always looking to the future. Like, what's going to be I don't care what people say about what I'm doing right now, but I care very much that when you look back at what I did 10 years from now, that most of the things I did were right, or I did the best I could, right? So to me, it seems the best thing if we look back in 10 years is to bring in young players and play them and let them play through their mistakes and eventually have a confident guy out there. So we played Heinrich last year. It's really his first time playing. We let him play through his mistakes. Dylan and Danny right now are playing through their mistakes. So, but to your point, you've got to have some flash now. You've got to make some plays, and you have to have the freedom to make plays. So we can't be safe. You know what I mean? Like, remember when you first started driving? Remember how you first started driving? You had 2 hands on the wheel, and you went you never got into a wreck, but you didn't get anywhere. Like, the key is to be able to drive real fast and go fast and take chances without making a ton of mistakes. And so that'll come as we go.
That driving analogy was great.
I'm perfect for that. I totaled 3 cars in a 3-year period, so I'm the perfect for that analogy. I didn't learn from my mistakes, though. I did not learn from my mistakes. Clearly.
No, what it sounds like to me that Matt Rhule has that you don't really see in your everyday coach is Matt Rhule really emanates an energy of like a CEO of a company. He's not pursuing expediency. He's pursuing longevity. Yeah. He wants every cog in the system to be working in the same direction. It is well lubricated and it is capable of doing the same thing every single time without flaw. And being able to think about it on a bigger picture requires you to think way into the future. Who cares about right now? Who cares about, are we making our budgets right now? Are we able to afford this right now? No, we need to be able to make an investment, take out the loans we need to, we'll pay back dividends. I believe so much in what this business has to offer to the world. I'm willing to take a risk and willing to take a bet on something that has longevity versus something that's expedient. The shareholders will get theirs. And it sounds to me like that's how Matt Rhule views football. He views it as a business. If you get the right guys in, you get the right coaches, you get the right culture, you get the right work-life balance, even though I know that a lot of those coaches have very little work-life balance right now. You're going to run a successful business, and the business is winning freaking football games. So I'm all for it. Like, it's so crazy listening to him talk. It's like when I listen to Bill Belichick, we were just talking about him, or when I listen to just some of the greatest coaches that we've had in college football for the last 20 years, and you just hear snippet after snippet of them talking, they don't necessarily speak with that kind of candid window into their coaching philosophy. They're very short, they're very sweet, and they're to the point. They don't let you look in. Matt really does have this kind of this persona of, if I believe something is good, I don't need to hold it back from anybody, because ultimately, are you going to be able to imitate what I'm doing? Good luck. Like, what we do requires a lot of work, and a lot of what other people want to do is make shortcuts. So who cares if I'm telling the world exactly what my coaching philosophy is? Because I could tell the whole world exactly what I do and give them a blueprint, and the majority of them aren't going to freaking do it anyway. So I love that about the guy. I agree with you. I agree with you, Ben. Like, this is a guy that you would want to go into the trenches with. Like, he just seems like a guy that isn't gonna hide behind himself for any reason. And that's what it sounds like to me. It sounds like a guy who knows what he wants and is gonna do everything he can to get it.
Yeah. My thoughts on it. Can I ask you a question? When you look back at the Mike Riley tenure, do you look back at, is it a positive or a negative? Probably a negative, right?
Slightly.
We had a 9-win season in there, and we were ranked number 7 at one point in the AP poll, right?
Yeah.
But how do people remember his tenure, right? And that's kind of what he's talking about. Recency bias, that type of thing. Mike Riley did have a great season, and he got Nebraska from a losing season to a 9-win season. Everybody's high on him, and then he immediately regressed. And I think that's what he's talking about here. When he's talking about, he's a general manager. He's talking about building something that will last. He mentioned before, he wants people to look back at him similar to the way they look back at Devaney and Osborne, as a guy who left a mark on this place, and a positive one. A guy that was able to do things the right way. He never talks about, just winning. He talks about doing things the right way. And when he talks about doing things the right way, in his mind, doing things the right way is going to lead to wins. And so he doesn't care about a flash in the pan season where he goes and gets, a quarterback for a season. We have a good year, and then what? He wants a guy that he can come in and develop and build sustained success. He doesn't want to go down like a Mike Riley. He wants to go down a Tom Osborne, a Devaney style of guy, and that requires consistency. You can't just come in here and do it for a season or two. And I think that's what he's talking about.
Yeah, because that's what we should have done with Solich. We should have given him, with how much college football was evolving post the 97 season and going into the early to mid 2000s. That was a very, very wild time in college football, just in all of college football history. Like that iconic season, what was it? The 2007, I think is what it was. The year where literally, if you were the second ranked team in the country, you were going to lose that week, because there was like 7 weeks in a row where the number 2 team lost.
Yeah. What the year Kansas? Was that the year Kansas got to the top?
Yes, you had Kansas, you had Hawaii.
Kansas and Missouri at one point were 1 and 2 that year. Yeah.
West Virginia was potentially going to play in a dude. It was a wide from 97 to 2007. It was an absolute wild, wild west with the implementation of the BCS and everything. If we would have been able, if the donors would have been able to realize that Frank Solich just needed to be given time. He just needed time to evolve with the game and be given, kind of like what Matt Rhule was saying. If you just give him time, you can look back and be like, yeah, 2002 was not a great year. But it doesn't matter because 2006 was, and 2007 was, and 2008 was, because we
2003
figured
was.
it out. Yeah, yeah. Like you can, hypothetically, if let's say Solich was still there,
Yeah.
does he get it figured out? I think he does. I think he ends up staying at Nebraska forever and ever and ever until he retired a few years ago from Ohio.
Yeah.
But he would have been at Nebraska.
Thanks, Steve Peterson.
Yep.
Yeah. Thanks, Peterson, with a D, you freaking dickwad.
Like I said, that's the salty part.
We're all salty about that name.
We've been all sweet,
Yeah, we
and
are.
now we're salty. But no, I totally agree with you, Justin. I think that Matt Rhule has an idea. He has an ideal. He sees the marathon, and he knows how to run it. And we just gotta be there and just witness it and see how it goes. It's gonna be fun.
And that's rare in the world of right here, right now.
Yes.
Yeah.
He is counterculture.
He's got a guy. He's a guy that to me seems like he's perfectly suited to do things in an old-fashioned philosophy with a newfangled way of doing things that you have to do things in college football now.
Yeah.
He's somehow figuring out how to mesh the two. And here's hoping it leads us to, 9-10 wins next year. But speaking of next year, this last video is very short, just a few seconds. It's him answering a question about his 2024 goals. This is the last part of the question, but he throws a little nugget at the end that I think will inspire a little bit of conversation. So let's check this out.
I plan on us having a lot of fun, and that might not be the great answer, Amy, when people ask you what's your goal this season, but that's my goal, because I know if I have fun and the players have fun, and we know we're going to work hard, we'll be pretty good.
Thanks, guys.
I didn't get to talk about the alternate uniforms yet. No, I'll do it later. Forget
Weird
he
question.
knew what he was doing with that.
Did he ever talk about him? Did he ever talk about him in the rest of Big Ten Media Days? Because these were literally the only two press conferences of his.
No, he knew. He knew what he was doing with that.
Heard.
We'll talk about it.
I made a prediction. I made a prediction, or I just offered this up. I was like, at the end of my Big Ten Media Days video or stream, I was just like, is this an indication that they're going to be revealed? Like, let's say if a David Sanders commits, they reveal him in that way or something like that. That'd be pretty cool. But I think it was sick. Because the thing about the alternates was somebody posted a picture of those, those jerseys, and everybody just kind of like ran with that as the alternates. I'm not necessarily sure that those are going to be the alternates. And that may be what he's alluding to, is the fact that he probably saw that and was like, okay, I'm going to have some fun with this. So I think there's a potential that those might not be the alternates, or there's something else mixed in that fans will like.
It's a perfectly Rhulean troll, is how I put it.
Yeah.
Yeah, because he's like, should have asked, and now everybody's like, dang it, man.
Yeah, exactly. You didn't ask me about the alternates. Oh, too bad. I'm out of here. See you.
Yep.
Grab my coffee.
Coffee
that you guys forgot to give me.
Leaves you with some blue balls.
I thought it was interesting, though, those three little statements he made in there about how we want to have fun. The coaches want to have fun. We know we're going to work hard.
Yep.
We know we're going to work hard, but the result is going to be having fun. And I think that's really cool.
When you're playing fun, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Nope, go.
When you're having fun, you're playing loose and you're not overthinking things. And that with anything, like I've been boxing for like a decade. And one of the things that I learned about boxing is you have to flow. Everything has to be loose. Everything has to be relaxed. When we're defending punches or when we're rolling under punches, we're not always seeing those punches coming. It's muscle memory. We're already moving in those directions. We know what punch combinations are coming. And so things like that, where you build these habits by working hard, doing things the right way, like he says. And if you have fun out there, those things are just going to happen, and that's what he's talking about, playing loose, playing fun. That was something we saw whenever Scott Frost left and Mickey Joseph in that first game where Mickey Joseph took over. And we had a couple changes on the staff, defensive coordinator, Bill Bush stepped in. We started to see that team have fun in that next week. We started to see that team have a little bit of fun over the course of the season, play a little loose. And Last year, we had a team that was playing tight. You know, Tristan Alvano, a lot of people criticize Tristan Alvano, but the point that I've been making all offseason, how much pressure was on Tristan Alvano to get points? Our offense couldn't score points. So you have a true freshman coming in with the weight of the world on his shoulders, and he's the guy that has to get you points as a true freshman, and all the pressure's on him. You know, that will be lifted off of this team, and that is another reason on top of just development why this team's going to be fun. And like I was talking about with turnovers earlier, if you're playing real tight, you're going to turn the ball over more. As a quarterback, you have to just read and react. You can't just be sitting there and be like thinking like, I can't throw an interception. If you throw tight, you're not going to stick to your fundamentals. It's not going to start from the ground up. You know, you're not going to remember to keep that shoulder closed and get this hand up to be able to make sure you don't sail the ball. You're going to be overthinking those things. You're going to be dropping snaps. And so that is a part of what I believe he was talking about when he's talking about playing fun.
Cool. All right. That wraps up our coverage of the Big Ten Media Days. That was a lot of fun. That was a great discussion, guys. Thanks so much for your insight. That was excellent. Let's move on to the last bit of business we have to deal with, because there's a certain angry turtle out there in SEC land that everybody seems to be calling him that these days. And the first time I'd ever heard that reference, believe it or not, was I don't know if either of you guys are familiar with Hail Varsity Radio. But Clausborne is a fictional character that calls in once in a while, does a dead-on impression of Tom Osborne, and he'll just drop some really snarky, fun stuff. And they asked him about a comment Finebaum had made, I think probably about Scott Frost back in the day. And Clausborne's response was something to the effect of, well, I'd only heard his voice before, and then I turned on my TV and I heard this voice, and I turned around and I was watching this uncircumcised turtle. And I was driving at the time. I almost drove off the road in an 18-wheeler. I was laughing so hard.
That's fantastic. I love that.
So the uncircumcised turtle seemed to take offense to something Matt Rhule said. I did not include it in any of the clips earlier because I thought it'd be perfect to throw in here. So here's what Rhule said and what Finebaum told him that everybody knows about, but I want to get y'all's reaction.
I think 4 teams from this league should get in every year because this is the best league. This is the NFL of college football in my mind. It stretches from coast to coast, different time zones, different weather. That's not to diminish any other league. The SEC is amazing. These other leagues are great, but the challenge in the Big Ten is going to be really difficult.
So he says the Big Ten should just automatically get 4 teams in the playoff. Paul, what do you think of that?
Matt, stay in your lane, okay? Job 1, win enough games to get to some stupid bowl game. Don't worry about the big boys because you're not one of them. We saw what you did in the NFL. You were a complete disaster in Carolina. You somehow got this job in Nebraska, and you're talking like you belong at the table with Ohio State and Georgia. You don't. Just try to win maybe 6 games. Quit choking big games on the final play and leave the punditry to the professionals. Thank you.
Sounds like that. I think that man needs to get laid.
All right. Would you guys like a Generation Red exclusive Coach BA rant here? Because I got some feelings. I'll lay them out if you would like it.
Go on.
I didn't bring any popcorn. Damn it. Go ahead, though.
Hold on. I'm putting my pants on.
A few things I would like to point out about Paul Finebaum in this statement. I'm just going to call him a bum from here on out. Okay. First point I have. Did you even listen to what Coach Rhule said? I know it's been a while since you had to do any real reporting as opposed to the propaganda that SEC SBN shoves down our throats for a while. So you might not be used to forming your own takes on things. But did you even take 1 minute or 30 seconds to listen to what he said? He never mentioned himself. He never mentioned Nebraska being in that big boy conversation. Nebraska could go 0-12 this season, and his point would still stand. His point had nothing to do with Nebraska. He was standing up for something in a conference, not himself in any way. And I know that may be a foreign concept to such a self-centered, egotistical maniac like this bum is, okay? But the thing I want to point out here is this bum is trying to say, stay in your lane, and then calls this guy out for coaching things, right? How about his old ass stays in his lane? Okay, he's been around for 3 or 4 decades covering sports. How about you go step up and go coach somewhere? Go coach at a high school level. Go coach at a college before you go tell an accomplished coach, stay in your lane. Matt Rhule is an actual accomplished football coach, and you're telling him to stay in his lane talking about football, college football. If Rhule needs to stay in his lane, what have you accomplished in your decades upon decades of life that you've been able to criticize these coaches? Stay in your lane. And the last thing I kind of want to say here is I realize we've been hearing a lot more about Paul Finebaum this offseason than I feel like normally. I feel like we normally don't see this dude until like the regular season. He needs to prop up his favorite schools. We keep seeing him now, and I couldn't figure out why. And then it hit me. Now that Nick Saban's retired, he doesn't know what to do with that mouth of his since he's had a certain body part of Nick Saban, in that mouth. Okay. So he has a lot more time on his hands now. So, and speaking of arguably the best college coach ever, how did he do in the NFL? Since you want to go take shots at Matt Rhule, how did Coach Saban do in the NFL? Right? I'm not taking a shot at Coach Saban. I'm just saying, what's that got to do with anything? Or does Saban not fit your narrative here? Right? It's almost like the college and NFL are two completely different things, almost like Justin said earlier, right? So I just want to say that Paul Finebaum is an absolute bum, and I need to shut up before I get too fired up and get Generation Red canceled here. But I think you guys get the idea.
If you've seen any of our old content, we haven't been canceled yet, and we probably should have a couple times.
Get it out of your system before you get monetized. That's
Can't cancel somebody who isn't sorry. So
let me just say this. First of all, when Greenberg threw it to Finebaum, fix your internet. We don't need the 4.5 second pause while you're finally getting the feed to your head to be able to talk. I mean, this is the worldwide leader in sports. They can't throw you a little bit of aloe. Come on, fix your internet, number one. Number two, Ben said it perfectly. What have you done? What accomplishments do you have other than the fact that you sit and the only thing you know is the SEC? That's the only thing he understands is the SEC. To me, this was the rant of a man who's scared, to be honest with you. Not of necessarily Nebraska or Matt Rhule, but scared of the fact that the SEC is just about fixing to get toppled off the top of the mountain that they think they're owed to stay upon. Y'all still lost the war, just in case you forgot, Paul. I know you were old enough to fight in it. So you did lose the war. The flag still isn't allowed to fly down there anymore. So just chill, live with it. Matt Rhule said he likes the Big Ten and he thinks the Big Ten will have 4 teams. And guess what? The other 8 will probably be from the SEC anyway. So take a pill, take a chill, go back to your radio show where you have the same 5 toothless rednecks that call in every fucking day, and just leave the rest of us alone.
My couple of thoughts on it is when he was talking about being the best league, he also threw in the fact that it's coast to coast and the weather is very vastly different depending on where you're at and over the course of the season, more so than the SEC. And that's non-negotiable. That's not an argument. He also never said that the SEC shouldn't get 4 as well. He said, I think the Big Ten should have 4 teams in there. I don't necessarily think he means automatic bid. I think he means the Big Ten is good enough to have 4 teams to qualify every single year. Finebaum takes that as a threat against the SEC, but I don't understand this narrative where you have to be in a position to be in the playoff to have an opinion on your own conference, And another thing here, if we're talking about being qualified for something, is Finebaum the top of his field? No. Then by his merit and by his definition there that he used, his comments shouldn't matter because there's people better than him in this field, right? If Nebraska is not good enough to have an opinion because they're not one of the top teams, then you're not one of the top reporters. You just said a lot of dumb stuff, polarizing stuff, and that's why people know you. Lane Kiffin the other day, I posted this on my Twitter.
It was great.
I saw the video at SEC Media Days when I was watching those. Lane Kiffin called him out. And Lane Kiffin and him are friends, but he called him out face to face at the podium for the things that he said about Lane Kiffin before. He said, "You got me fired." And you said, "I don't know what he called him the Miley Cyrus of coaching or something like that. and he called him out on that. And Finebaum looked like flustered, scared, like he didn't know what to do, and they hurried up and panned off of him. So the man can only talk from a big screen behind the computer screen, because when he was confronted by an actual coach, tucked his tail and left. I guarantee if Matt Rhule is sitting in front of him, he would have a completely different energy.
Yeah.
That's all I need to know Finebaum is a little bitch. So
Yep.
There we go.
Is what it
Well
is.
said. Well said, my
Well
friend.
said.
I think if there's one thing that Paul Finebaum is good at in this world, aside from obviously, extremities being potentially extracted from their, source materials and all that stuff, he knows how to engagement farm.
Yeah.
I mean, the day and age of, on Twitter, you can make tens of thousands of dollars a month on just engagement farming.
Yep.
And he knows that his network is dying. He knows that his brand is dying. He knows that the amount of influence and pull that he can have, the only way he can do it is by rustling the hornet's nest that is Twitter and all of the other, social media platforms combined, but mostly Twitter. Twitter is definitely the positive feedback loop, echo chamber type situation. And so if there is one thing he's good at, he does know how to say really, really stupid shit to make people really, really upset.
Yeah.
And the Nebraska fan base is just the lowest hanging fruit, because we are sick and tired of being sick and tired. We're always getting beaten up. We love our team to death. We love our team more than anybody else. And of course, yeah, dog on us. Go for it, buddy. We've been there before. But we'll bite. Why not? Let's start ragging on him. He does look like the turtle from Master of Disguise, that like B-rated comedy movie. Turtle enough for the Turtle Club.
Turtle.
Belongs in his soup.
Soup.
Go ahead.
He knows what he's doing. He just made ESPN probably, quite a few $1,000s worth of just ad revenue on the old Twitterverse. But he's dying. He's a dying person. He's not going to be relevant for much longer unless he keeps up. The only way he stays relevant is if he keeps doing what he's doing, which is just inflammatory remarks that, like you said, he would never actually say that stuff to people's face. He is a coward. He looks like a coward. There's a physiognomy to him that is just reeks beta. Like he just looks so weak. Yep. It's like, oh, dude, shut up.
Can I add one more thing?
Yeah.
Ken, you don't mind if I just share screen for 1 second, right?
Go for it.
Okay, I want you to notice something, because like he's apparently he's hard of hearing, but you can see why his ears are kind of giving up on him. You'll see right here, if we can pull it up.
Let me pull down the overlay.
The ears are slowly falling off of his head. He looks like he's melting. You see how much lower they are?
His ears are parallel with his mouth.
They're kind of almost at his neck. So maybe maybe something's off there. But he seems to be melting a little bit. So and his hair's running away from his face too.
He's the Wicked Witch of the Southeast, then, is what you're saying. Oh my goodness. Well, I don't know if we want to do this, Scott. I mean, God, it's been 2 hours, so what the hell? Fun facts, boys. Just something about yourselves, Justin and Ben, that maybe somebody that you've maybe never revealed. I mean, you just said you box, Justin. I'm pretty sure there's a lot of people watching your podcast that maybe didn't know that. But is there a fun fact about you that you'd be willing to share live on camera?
Yeah, actually, so my number one hobby, before Nebraska football for everything, Nebraska football is my number two. Singing. I've been singing my whole life. My dad was in a band that traveled East Texas and West Louisiana. I grew up singing, grew up on stage. I was in the military and actually auditioned for The Voice and got accepted, but due to contractual obligations of the military, I couldn't go. So yeah, I've been singing my entire life. It's something I sing every day. I practice every day. I started playing piano over a year ago. So I'm learning, I'm playing that pretty well now. Did it to rehab my fingers after I got nerve damage. Couldn't move my fingers for 4 months. lost my insurance at work. So I was like, you know what, let's play the piano to kind of help me regain my motor skills. And so, yeah, I've been,
cool.
I'm a singer, been singing a while.
What kind of stuff do you sing?
Country.
What kind of music? Country.
But
There you go.
I also practice like rapping and stuff like that because it helps you enunciate. You know, when you get into quicker songs, you need to be able to enunciate, but not only enunciate, be able to quickly breathe in between. And so I do that to really help me. You know, I'll even speed it up and try to do it at 1.25 speed on really fast ones to just, you know, practice that enunciation quickly, because in country music, you're not going to see it enunciated that quickly. So that also, you know, helps as well. So I sing a little bit of everything just to be versatile.
Cool.
But my main genre and what I perform is country music.
Cool. How about you, Ben?
So I think kind of a interesting fun fact about me is Fairberry Red hot dogs. I eat more of those hot dogs than pretty much anything else I eat. I will eat it. I'll eat 2 or 3 for lunch every single day. I love Fairberry Red hot dogs. So this is kind of a funny story that my family really likes. So when we moved from a really small town, Hebron, Nebraska, and we moved from Hebron, Nebraska to just south of Kansas City, I remember being a kid going to Walmart with my dad and him wanting to get hot dogs and at the store and just being like, these are all rotten hot dogs. Why didn't I all have actual red hot dogs here? My 8-year-old brain or whatever couldn't wrap my head around the fact that not all hot dogs were like the bright red ones. Right. So I to this day, I'm not even kidding. Even though I haven't lived in the state of Nebraska for, gosh, I guess 10, 15 years at this point, I still don't eat any other hot dogs except Fairberry Red hot dogs. Every time I see my grandparents, my brother, my cousins, whoever, they bring me coolers full. Like my freezer is full of Fairberry Red hot dogs. So I am the biggest Fairberry Red hot dog fan probably in the world. And yeah, just kind of a little fun fact about me is I'm probably keeping them in business.
Okay, well,
I'll give you a funny one, just real quick. I'm sorry.
No.
I grew up in Southeast Texas. You know, I'm familiar with bugs, snakes. I don't mind any of those. But the one thing that all my friends will tell you that I'm definitely afraid of and I hate are tree frogs and small lizards.
Really?
I had a tree frog jump in my mouth when I was a kid. I grew up kind of broke. So me and my sister used to talk through the top bar of the swing set, you know, just put her ear up to it and talk back and forth. Simple day back then. Whereas like the swing set where that bar is, the caps were off and we were just so a frog jumped in my mouth and I don't know why my mouth closed and I just started running around and then I started screaming and then I opened my mouth and the frog just sat there. My instinct wasn't to get it. I've been traumatized by tree frogs ever since. And then those small lizards, they you know, I catch bullfrogs and all that's fine, but those small lizards that kind of do this and then they're like, and that little thing comes out. Like I'm pretty sure those are dinosaurs and might, you know, kill me in my sleep. So I don't like those either. So yeah, tree frogs, lizards, not my thing. It's something that people probably wouldn't expect me to be afraid of, but I am.
All right. Well, I think I know what I'm getting you for Christmas.
I put a hole in a bathroom door because my sister had a paper towel and she said there was a tree frog in it and she threw it at me and around the house and threw it at me. And I literally punched a hole in the bathroom door. I was so mad, dude. I was like, I was so mad because I was so scared and she was joking. I was like, oh, I hate you.
Well, this is some informational gold right here. That's for sure.
Great.
That's for sure.
The hot dog king
publicly.
And a singer.
Country singer who's deathly afraid of tree frogs.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
But I boxed. That doesn't make sense.
Oh, man. I used to do a bit of singing back in the day myself.
Nice.
Years and years ago, I actually had the word pastor in front of my name, too, in a small church out in Arizona, or in Grand Island, Nebraska. And me and my guitar, we'd stand up on stage and do all the singing and stuff for Sundays.
Nice.
So,
love that.
Yeah. I miss it.
Yep.
I really, really miss it. I just don't. Whiskey has basically destroyed my vocal cords. Too many years of that, so I don't have the voice I used to. But
I didn't drink till I was 21. I was one of those guys. So I was overseas though. 18 to 21, I was overseas the entire time.
You didn't miss much. I can attest. The hangovers are worse after 21, though. That I did discover.
In the military, military, they call us drinkers with a sailing problem instead of sailors with a problem.
Sounds about right. Well, you got one, Scott, real quick?
Fun fact about me is I really like the game Escape from Tarkov. It's a really, really addicting game. I don't play it online because there's too many hackers, so can't deal with that. So I ended up getting the client mod, single player Tarkov, with a bunch of other mods that I can basically create an online simulated game where the players that are generated in the game act like real players and will flank you and will do crazy things. And it's really fun. But the fun fact is the fact that as a newly minted dad, I acquired this habit of playing this game right at the peak of not getting sleep. And so I really am not getting sleep these days because
Yeah, I hear you on that, man.
the wife goes to bed with the baby like anywhere between 8:30 and 9:30, and then I play my games until like 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning, and then wake up at 6:30. But I can run. I can run off of 4.5 hours of sleep. It doesn't feel great, but I can do it.
It's doable at your age at this point. It won't be long before it won't be doable. Trust me. Trust me on that.
If the watchers are out there, don't know what Escape from Tarkov is, I highly recommend. I will give a shameless plug, free advertising. Swamp Fox TV on YouTube. He does an incredibly good job of adding graphics and stuff that shows you what each thing in the game is doing when he uses it. It's basically just a game where you loot around and you kill a bunch of people and you take their stuff, and then you have to leave the place. And if you don't leave the place and you get killed, you lose all your stuff and it's gone forever. So there's a lot of weight to the game. You show up with your loadout, your guns, your armor, your hat, your blah, blah, blah. And if you die, it's gone forever. So it's a really fun game. Swamp Fox TV, check it out. Super fun game if there are gamers out there. I would tell you to message me on Twitter if you wanted more information about that. But I don't exist on Twitter.
Are they affiliated with the optics company Swamp Fox?
Great optics.
No. He's never mentioned it. I assume if he was, he would probably do an advertisement. Yes, if you look up Swamp Fox, it needs to be Swamp Fox TV, because if you look up Swamp Fox, you'll get optics.
Yeah.
Well, you get both of them. You'll get both of them, and he has more subscribers in the optics.
I just was curious because it's a shooting game. I wasn't sure if there was an affiliation there. So
no.
Yep. I've got a LPVO from
LPVO. Yes,
love that.
We get 30% off for veterans and military.
Oh, nice. I need to look into that.
Yeah.
Do they do canted sites?
No, not that I.
Or like the small ones that you can add to like a canted rail.
You talking about the 45-degree canted rail? I think they have irons for that. Are you talking about the actual rail itself?
Anything. Do they have like from M-lock to sight? Do they have like
they have
that?
they have a lot of variation, but I ordered my LVVO for my 308 about 2 years ago, so a lot of things could have probably changed since then.
I'll have to look it up because I've been wanting to get that 45 canted on my AR for a while now, and
they're fun.
No
doubt about it.
Expensive but fun.
That'll be fun. That'll be fun when I go up to South Dakota. I'm still actually ordained, according to the internet. So I will be going up to South Dakota here in a couple of weeks to officiate a wedding for a buddy of mine from a Second Amendment group that I was in.
Awesome.
And that's how I got hooked up with Swamp Fox Optics. So I'm taking my AR with my LPVO on it and a bunch of handguns. We're going to have a little mini range day up there. So
love it.
Then we'll have steaks that night and cigars. It'll be absolutely glorious.
Testosterone will be flowing. There will be so much girth.
Oh yeah,
girth of male activities.
It's going to be awesome. So
anyway, Scott.
I had to bring it back. Let's go.
He's got girth on his mind. I'm not sure exactly if that's a good thing.
It might have been a Freudian slip. I don't know.
So as we wrap up, I just want to remind everybody that's watching that if you have the bye-week blues on October 12th, 2024, and you live anywhere near Eagle, Nebraska, and you like to play golf, we have a charity golf scramble we're putting together. Go to genredpod.com and click on the graphic like this, and you'll be able to sign up to either play or both. You can play. You can also set up to be a sponsor for the event and help raise money for those who were affected by the tornadoes on April 26th. So if it's successful, we plan to do it every year because I like to play golf, and yeah, might as well give back a little bit. So that's that. What else? What else we got here? Next live stream will be next Sunday night, August 4th, same time, same channel, with Coach Ben. Coach BA will be right here in the studio with me. Scott, I think you're on call, but you'll be in your space. So, and we'll be talking about the open practice that Ben and I will be able to go to on Saturday night. So it'll be kind of like a night version of the spring game. So we're kind of looking forward to that. And hopefully we can steal a little bit of video and be able to break that down, Ben, if they let us. That would be kind of cool.
Yeah, that would be cool. That would be cool.
So, and then we're planning, Scott and I were talking earlier, August 11th, we're going to do another live stream before I go to South Dakota that next week, where we'll pick our depth chart for offense and defense. So either you two guys want to be in on that and have some fun picking the two deep on offense and defense, we'd love to have you back on.
Love to do it.
All right, cool. Sounds like a plan. Coach Ben, I know it's right there on the screen, but is there any other places folks can follow you and keep track of the stuff that you've got going?
Pretty much just every social media platform is at the BA Coaches Show. I have the same handle on literally anywhere you can find me. So just go there, just search it up, and I'll be there, and I'm active, and I'm talking Husker sports and sometimes making people mad.
How about you, Justin?
Yeah. You don't want to follow me on Facebook. I'm a little more wild and reckless on there. So follow me on X at _H-Town Husker. I am usually talking trash, but I like to pick people apart methodically. So if I take up your timeline and going back and forth, I apologize in advance. But yeah, _H-Town Husker on X. You can find me there. And then, of course, the Voice College Football Nebraska. And then my other channel, we're in a little hiatus just with the season coming on, and my co-host Sonny was brought on to start the Locked On Illini channel. So we're about to fire up content back then. It's called the Big Ten Show. It's at Big Ten Show on Twitter. We post about 31 videos, got about 1,090 subscribers, so it's doing really well so far.
Absolutely.
Yeah, go ahead and follow us over there for every show.
It's a good show. I've enjoyed whenever I've seen them pop up on my feed. They're fun to watch. So you guys do a great job breaking that stuff down. Scott, I know you're not on Twitter, so don't have to worry about you.
Don't worry about me.
Yeah, Gen Red Pod is where you follow the show on all the social media, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and then Generation Red on your favorite podcast app. If you want to search for that to subscribe to the audio show, all these live streams that you're watching now will be available in audio form tomorrow morning on your favorite podcast app. GenRedPod.com is the website where you can sign up for the charity golf scramble. GenRedPod@gmail.com is where you can email me. If you'd like to volunteer to help with the charity golf tournament, we could use a few hands out there. And if you have any items you'd like to donate for a silent or a live auction, got some autographed items that will be given away. Namely, right now, the big one is the signed jersey I got from Grant Wistrom after they made an appearance on the show. So that'll be going up for live auction. And I think that's about it, boys. That's about it. Yeah, go ahead.
Update on David Sanders that I saw. So they gave an update that they think Tennessee and Nebraska right now are the two teams that pulled ahead. So it seemed like before going into it, like I said, Ohio State but Nebraska and Tennessee had an opportunity to make a push, and it looks like it's down to those two teams. And I like where Nebraska stands currently. Now that it's them two, I give it about a 50-50 shot.
50-50. That's kind of what I was thinking.
I like
it's right around 50. I like the sound of that myself. Do you think if just the crazy idea that David Sanders actually commits, do you think Michael Terry might end up coming along with him?
I think there's a potential. I think we would have had a better opportunity of that if they were on the visit together. They could have talked about, joining it. But there very well may be a plan in place to make sure that they communicate, and we'll see how that goes. But I think I still give us an outside chance. I do think Oregon is in the lead for Michael Terry, but he does like the way Nebraska is going to use him fit-wise. So we'll wait and see what the kind of finalized detail is, because you're going to talk NIL and stuff like that. But another part of me feels like I almost want to go 51-49 Nebraska Sanders, just because I've heard so many good things about the Nebraska visit from people I've spoken to. I think Nebraska's got a very good shot to land him.
Golly, that does my heart some good. Get that big, talented left tackle to protect Dylan's backside for 2 or 3 years would be awesome.
Yeah,
and maybe his little brother too.
It's proximity to home versus I feel like he's connected better with the Nebraska staff than proximity to home. So
very cool. Thanks for that update, Justin. I appreciate it. Thanks again, folks, for watching. We really appreciate you sticking around with us for 2 hours and almost 15 minutes. I appreciate you guys sticking around with us for 2 hours and 15 minutes.
My fault. Well, it's 2 hours.
One of our longer episodes in a very
one of our longer ones in quite a while.
You get 4 guys that love talking Nebraska football and can do it for hours. This is what you get.
Yeah, this is true.
I can't.
That depth chart episode is going to take probably 16 hours, so we better have our meals ready to go. And
that's right. That's right. Have a little. That's what I was thinking. Gonna need a couple of Evian bottles or something handy. Something with the wide mouth on the top, right? Because of girth.
Comedy comes in threes. There it is. You completed it.
We full circle, so to speak. Anyway, thanks again for watching, folks. He's Scott. I'm Ken. Together we're Generation Red, and we are chronicling Nebraska's inevitable to return to the top of the college football heap, one podcast at a time, because there is no place like Nebraska.
And Iowa's corn sucks more than Paul Finebaum sucks the SEC's
thingy. Yep.
Yep, you're goddamn right.
There we go. We got some blasphemy involved now. Cool. Appreciate it. Thanks, guys, once again, and we will see you next week. Go Big Red.
Go Big Red.